I would like to welcome you to this session on effective tools for requirements and concept development. In this session, we'll focus on the use of the failure modes effects analysis concept that's implemented as part of the SDI Tools Triptych toolset. The SDI tools contain a suite of tools. In this discussion, we'll be focusing on the use of Triptych as tools for requirements and concept development. And furthermore, we will take the information that we produced using affinity diagram techniques, analytical hierarchy process, and QFD, and look at how we can start leveraging this information as part of our failure modes effects and analysis process. The Triptych tools contain a suite of tools that can address three key areas that we've identified for any product development or problem-solving activity. That being the voice of the customer, collecting this information, innovation, or collecting or coming up with ideas or alternatives of how we could address the customer's problem, and then also design selection techniques to pick the best alternative in the various concepts that have been identified. We're going to begin this process with understanding the problem, organizing ideas, and identifying needs and wants, and we've used the affinity diagram to document this information. Then to prioritize this information, we focused on the use of the analytical hierarchy process, and then extended that information through quality function deployment techniques to start identifying the hows for particular wants or needs for the stakeholders that may have been identified, and use this technique to start developing critical requirements for lower levels of the proposed solution. Other areas that we'll need to address will be that of creating alternatives, potentially using the trees or theory of inventive problem-solving techniques. Once you do have a set of alternatives, it could be potential approaches to solving the customer's problem or for this product development activity. Then we'll be addressing design selection or alternative evaluation techniques. But for now, what we're going to be addressing is that of the problem of identifying risk that could result from a set of requirements that we have developed. So we're going to take information from our QFD, we're going to flow this information into an FMEA type diagram or matrix, and then start expanding upon this information to start the early identification of assessment of potential risk in our products. The FMEA technique is a documentation method that we can use to collect information related to potential failure modes and address these before they occur and start thinking about actions we could take to prevent their occurrence. A standard FMEA type diagram typically includes areas for collecting the items or functions of interest, the potential failure modes along with a severity score that would address the severity or the effects that could be produced due to a certain failure, areas for collecting potential causes, mechanisms of failure, the occurrence or likelihood of that failure, design controls for prevention or detection, and also how these techniques would allow in the detectability of a potential failure mode or event that's identified. And then also the creation of the RPN or the risk priority number, which is the product of the severity score, the occurrence, and the detectability score. And then also in this FMEA template, we've included areas for documenting recommended actions and who the assignments will be to and target completion dates, and then action results that have actually occurred, and now what is the modified severity, occurrence, and detectability due to this corrective action and the resulting RPN number. So we can continue the process of identifying what the highest potentials are to potential problem or risk, and then how our actions have mitigated that risk and how we've continued to improve the product starting at the very early or very beginning of your product development process. So let's go look at how we can use this technique in the Triptych toolset. In our prior discussions, we looked at the creation of affinity diagrams to collect information to be used to address a particular problem statement that's been identified that we are working on, maybe development activities for our stakeholders in this area. And we've identified key groups that are kind of will be the focus with respect to addressing this particular problem statement. We then took information from the affinity diagram tool and flowed it into the analytical hierarchy process template for the purpose of doing pairwise comparisons among these various items and producing a scaled importance or a prioritization or a rank ordering of these individual items. The next step in our process was to flow this information into a QFD, where now we can take the prioritized whats or needs of our stakeholders, start entertaining hows or the ideas could be used to address these particular whats and support them, and then also the relationship of these hows to the whats also were identified. And then we showed how we could take hows at one level of house equality, flow these down into a new house equality as whats, and then continue the decomposition process identifying additional hows that would support those and the corresponding relationships between these whats and hows. So now at this point in time, what we're going to do is go create start a failure modes and effects analysis type process, and we're going to start using information that we've collected in these prior events in order to begin or initiate the FMEA process. In the SDI Tools, we can go create an FMEA by going to the Triptych toolbar and click on the new worksheet icon. We can select in the FMEA technique that we want to go produce an FMEA template for, and then click the OK button, and we have created a blank FMEA template. Now initially the template only has one row in it, but we can go and add additional rows by using the toolbar functions that are available either through the right-click menus or using the icons that are in the FMEA toolbar. So you can add additional rows and populate this as desired in order to build your FMEA. So looking at the areas that are available in the FMEA, you have areas for identifying items or functions, sub-items or sub-functions, a potential failure mode that could occur that could impact the success of this item or sub-item you're addressing, what the potential effect of the failure would be, and then you can also assign a severity score, which is in this tool implemented as a score from 10 to 1 that would be related to the severity that would occur if this potential failure mode did occur in your product. So you can just click on a number and put the score in there. Another option is for the severity is to right click in that cell, and you'll get a list that gives you a brief phrases or definitions of what is a potential 10. Well, this would be a hazardous without warning type effect that could occur, or maybe a moderate or minor or very low. In addition, you can click on the FMEA definitions, get the full definitions of what these particular ranks or severity scores would be, the basic abbreviated effect of it, and then a more expanded definition of what the severity or effect could mean to your products. And then when you've identified the one that does apply to this particular effect of a failure, you can very simply click on it, double click, and then that score will be placed in your template. Okay? Then you can continue the process with identifying potential causes or mechanisms of this failure. You can also then insert an occurrence score. Once again, is on a 10 to 1 scale basis. Again, you can right click in the cell for the occurrence score and get then the probability of this occurrence in standard ranges that are used in various industries, and you could select the appropriate one if desired. Once again, through the right click, you can click on the FMEA definitions and get the definitions for the occurrence score, select the one that's appropriate, and double click to enter that in the matrix. Then you can continue the process with identifying current design controls that are in place to either prevent this failure event from occurring or for detecting that the event has occurred, and then once again entering in your 10 to 1 scale detectability score, where definition wise 10 would mean it's almost impossible to detect this event. going down to then almost certain that you can be able to detect this event using these prevention and detection methods that are identified. And then once again, the FMEA definitions can be used to select these also. Okay. So as we've entered this information, we also get the risk priority number calculated, which is the product of the detectability score times the occurrence times the severity score, and you can then use this information to assess these potential failure modes and the effects of failures that have resulted. Other areas in the FMEA template include the regions for recommended actions, actions taken, the updated severity, occurrence, and detectability that resulted from the action that was produced, and then what the revised RPN number would be. So using this template, you can go in and just manually create your FMEA. You can add rows, delete rows, you can group areas within your FMEA template. You can very easily sort information by information in any of the columns that are available. RPN is the default, which is the area that's usually used to sort information. But you can also sort based on items or functions, effects of failures, severities, classes, any other information, any other fields can be used in this sort. Now then, what I would like to do is let's go back to the QFD level 1 matrix that we produced before, or actually what I'm going to do is let's say that we have started producing an FMEA diagram, and we recognize that there's a lot of information in some of the prior tools we've used that could be used to initiate or augment your FMEA diagram. So let me go and delete some of these unnecessary rows I put in here. And let's go to the FMEA toolbar and go to the export or the import icon, the red arrow coming into this worksheet to import information to our FMEA. So one of the features in the Triptych tool set is that if you click on this icon, you will get you can select items from a particular workbook. In this case, the only workbook we have open is our affinity diagram example that we've started. You can import information from worksheets that have already produced, such as the AHP or any one of the QFD diagrams you produced. So I'm going to click on the QFD one for this example. And what you'll be shown is in this QFD level 1 diagram, we had identified whats that were the use of affinity diagram results, information documentation, attendees and representation, meeting facilitation, and then the hows that we've identified are the ones listed here below here also. We can filter this information and display it using various techniques. And in this case, we will look at a particular how and then the whats that could be related to this particular how. And then also from the QFD, we've captured the high, medium, or low relationship that was in there. And we can further filter this information to maybe remove items that have no relationship, remove items that possibly only have a low relationship, and any of these items we can select and select these to import into an FMEA. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click the select all button, and we will select all these items to import into areas in an FMEA matrix. Okay. Now then, we can also choose to append the relationship information along with this information so it's documented when we have it in our FMEA. Now where do we want to move this information to? Well, the whats could be moved into an item or function area of your FMEA template. They could be a sub-item, they could be a potential failure mode, they could be effect of the failure, or it could be potential cause or mechanism of failure. Well, let's say that the whats could be a potential effect of a failure. The effect is we would not satisfy this particular what that we've identified. So I'm going to select that. Now then, the hows. Where do you want to import this information? Once again, items or functions, sub-items or sub-functions, potential failure modes, the effect of the failure, potential cause. Well, let's say that in this case, let's make it the potential failure mode. So if a particular how was not achieved, this would be a failure mode and would cause a particular effect that we've identified here. So now then, just taking this as one way to approach your FMEA, let's click the import button, and we will see that this information is now moved into your FMEA diagram. Okay, so basically we can use this as a starting point. So the failure mode could be that we failed to capture supporting information. The effect of the failure mode could be the use of the affinity diagram results. So we get unsatisfactory results or use of the information. It could be the potential failure mode is a deal with incorporating with the requirements development process. When we fail to incorporate information as part of our requirements development process and so forth. So you can continue to collect this information. You can then select what might be the appropriate severity, occurrence, if you've identified potential causes of this and so forth, and collect this information in the template. So here we're using the QFD information as just initial information to kind of facilitate the launching of this session. So rather than starting with no information, we'll start with information related to what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to achieve a particular result for our stakeholders. So let me show you an example of taking information that we just brought in, and in this case I have further augmented the matrix, and in addition to our potential effects of failure, potential methods, I've modified the information that we brought over from QFD to kind of better illustrate what the effect could be. And then also I've identified the item or function that we're addressing, in this case the affinity diagram, and the potential failure mode that could result from these activities. And I've included then additional information related to potential causes and mechanisms of failure, and then items or activities we could perform as part of prevention or detection mechanisms or design controls. And I've included then appropriate severity scores, occurrence, and defectability scores. So here you see that in the diagram we see the calculated RPN numbers, and in this case these RPN numbers are color coded. So red would be very severe, maybe something you want to address initially. The yellow ones would be kind of cautionary items, and the greens are low enough down on the list in terms of their RPN number that maybe they don't require action at this point in time. Now then, so this information could be sorted by the RPN number as we've shown, and we've done these in a descending order and the way we've identified them. We also see that the color coding here, that we can go address this and actually define it as part of one of the options using the FMEA tool. So in the options you have the ability to identify which fields of your FMEA template will be presented in your worksheet. And in this case we have deselected the sub-items or sub-functions that were actually blank, and so this information was unchecked, and that column is hidden in your worksheet. So it's not deleted, it's just hidden. Another option is for the RPN color modes. So actually the red, yellow, and green color coding was based on identifying possibly with an absolute RPN number of all items that were 100 or less would be green. Items that were between 101 and 599 would be yellow, and everything that's 600 or greater would be red. So that's where the colors came from. And then there's other options for color coding based on actions. So in some industries they look at a combination of severity scores, occurrence and severity, along with detectability, assign the appropriate levels and display the appropriate colors then that would go along with that assessment. Okay. And then another option you can use is that of color coding based on severity by occurrence. So it could be that we would say that any item that had a severity score of 9 or 10, okay, would be red, and then possibly anything that had an occurrence score of 9 or 10 would be displayed as a red flag. and then maybe anything that was an 8 in both severity and occurrence. And let's go ahead and make this a 7 also, and then possibly some these regions also would be anything that had this combination severity occurrence would then be color-coded yellow, and the other cells would then be green in the results. So this could be used as an alternate method of identifying the colors for the appropriate RPN numbers. So I'll go ahead and apply this, and we see we get some different color coding applied as a result of this selection. Okay, so here what we've demonstrated is basically how to start using the FMEA tool that's included in the Triptych tool set, and then also how to import information from other tools into this as a starting point for your FMEA process. So basically in this session we've continued our discussion of how to use the Triptych tools to perform some very simple activities very early in the development process that could have a major impact for your future events. We demonstrated the user interface for the FMEA technique, how you can use it. Once again, you've created an Excel worksheet, so you can send this Excel worksheet to anyone else that needs to evaluate the information you've collected. We've looked at how you could use the functions to add or delete rows, or actually column or rows in this technique, and hide columns of information if it's not needed. You can continue to format the cells with color coding, changing the fonts. Comments and hyperlinks can be added to any cell within your FMEA template. The RPN number results are automatically computed for you. There's not necessarily any check features in this, but you can click do check for empty cells and things like that you may want to go and update before you conclude your FMEA session. And then we've looked at how in this case you can flow information into the FMEA template from other tools. So anything from the AHP technique, the QFD, design selection tools that we'll look at, any of the information can be flowed into your FMEA your FMEA template if you desire to do so. So in summary, we have looked at the failure modes and effects analysis technique as a method for assessing and managing risk early in your development process. Use this technique as part of your product development, systems engineering, or design for Six Sigma activities. Collect the information, organize it. Through the techniques of sharing the Excel workbook, you can provide this to others that may need to utilize the information. And then hopefully you can see how you can apply this information at any level of your system, at the high level definition, at the individual product levels, or even at the process levels. So a lot of times FMEAs are used as a design FMEA focusing on the product, or as a process FMEA focusing on manufacturing processes. So the template that I've demonstrated in this session can be used for either product FMEAs, design FMEAs, or for process FMEAs, and can be applied at any level of your design activities. So I'd like to thank you for attending this session, and if you have any questions, please contact me. And if you'd like to try out the SDI tools for your applications, you can download the installer at stat-design.com. The initial installation will provide you with a free 7-day trial, and contact us if you'd like to consider extensions to that or procuring the tools for your activities. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll attend other sessions that we'll be posting related to the use of the SDI tools. Goodbye.